Welcome you all in this post-lunch session.
This meeting is being recorded.
I welcome you all in the post-lunch session of the day. And in this session, Professor Ambesh Dixit, IIT Jodhpur, will continue his discussion on solar cell technologies. Ambesh sir, am I audible to you?
Yes, I can.
So can we start the session?
Yes, please. So should we start with the discussion from my end, or if there are questions in the previous session, then I can try to address them.
So can we take all the questions at the end of the session? Like only one question was
Fine,
left from the previous session.
Right. Right. So I will start discussing from where I have left. Right.
Yes, sir. So please turn on your video, sir.
Yes. So I hope yes. Fine. So let me again share the screen and then. So we ended the discussion on characterizing a solar cell, and then see that how we can come up with the next stage, that only cell is not sufficient to generate the power. We need to come from a small level state to the module level, and module is still not sufficient to get right power for applications. So you need to come to the array, and then what are the minimum criteria?
Actually, your slides are not visible, sir. We are unable to see the slides.
Okay. Then let me do one thing. What it says. So now this is possible. Now you can see the slides.
No, sir. Still they are not visible, sir.
Hello.
Sir, they are not visible, sir.
Now the slides are visible.
No, sir. No, sir.
Let me stop sharing. And then do me one. I am just going to stop my video because that has a problem. If bandwidth has a problem.
Sure, sir.
Then. So now this is visible. You can see.
Not yet, sir.
Oh.
It's simply showing that you have started screen sharing, but slides are not visible. Yes, sir. Now they are visible, sir.
Now they are visible. Now if I go to the presentation mode,
yes,
then
sir,
they should be visible. That is more
yes,
important. So
yes, sir.
Now this is visible.
So they are visible, but not in the presentation mode.
Okay, now I can change the slide. Can you see the slides are changing?
No, sir, slides are not changing, sir.
Okay. Where is the problem then? Let me.
I guess it is simply that your internet is slow. Otherwise, now it seems like you have changed the slide. So it is simply that your internet connection.
No, now I am not in the presentation mode. So that is there.
Yes, it is not in the presentation mode, but one slide is changed.
Yes. Slide has changed. Let me try to do it again. If I am sharing my entire screen, then it should be much easier for me to work it out. So now I believe this screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Now slides will be changing. Right?
Now we are seeing it. Yes, sir. It is in the presentation mode also, and they are changing as well.
Right. Fine.
Okay, sir.
Good. So we need to know how the cell works and then how to characterize. That we do in our laboratory. If those who are working at a small scale cell, then only cell is not sufficient to provide you the sufficient voltage, and then device. You need to come from cell to a next device that is a much bigger device, that is a module. That in general module has a combination of 36 solar cells, and that leads to the 12-volt outcome with few milliampere current, tens of milliamperes current. Then you can arrange these modules as you can think of one module as a single solar cell. Then you can again arrange them in a combination of series and parallels to get much higher voltage and much higher current. That is in general used. And then we have seen that how we characterize from cell level, that is here, to module and to array, and how the things will be changing. So this was the first part of our discussion, like how we have seen what kind of preventive measures that we take to overcome. Now, the second part of this stage is where right now technology is relying on solar cells. So can we move to the beyond solar cell, beyond silicon solar cell? So if you want to do that, then we have to look for new technologies, new technological ideas, where we have limited efficiency up to, for example, field efficiencies are up to 15 to 17, 18%, maximum 20%. Can we reach up to the theoretical limits as well? Or can we beat the theoretical limits somehow? The Sokal-Cuisier limit that is there, can we beat it to? That is our objective. So question comes nowadays that if you see, people are looking for alternatives, that how this nanotechnology will be looking into it. So I will be looking into these two aspects, like energy generation that we are talking about, solar cells. So silicon solar cells that we have discussed so far were based on single junction solar cell. Then I have showed you example of CZTS, that is a PN junction based heterojunction, PN junction, but heterostructure materials. Two different materials are there. In silicon, they are same materials. But now we will be looking to the next generation technology solar cells, which are based on very low cost. So previously, we never have paid attention on cost and fabrication process. So now we want to pay attention on next generation solar cells, which you call, and then we would like to put attention on can we still use them for real potential applications. So one of them is coming as a dye sensitized solar cells, and this is based on the dye molecule, which is an organic molecule which acts as a absorber. So in previous case, that whatever we have seen, that the incident light was absorbed by semiconducting material. Now in this dye sensitized solar cell, the first word that comes is dye, that is acting as an absorber. So that is there. And a number of dyes are available, different color dyes are available. If you can integrate them, you can have a flexibility of increasing the absorption in the entire solar window that is there. And additional advantage is there, these dye molecules can be integrated anywhere. For example, we use colored clothing as well, right? So this is a relatively new solar cell. Advantage is it is not a PN junction based solar cell. It is a dye based solar cell where dye is absorbing, and then we need to learn how to separate the photo generated electron and holes from the dye molecules. So this is a dye sensitized solar cell, a new kind of low cost solar cell with a great potential, as materials are very cheap with respect to silicon, and anyone can make even at home as well today, right? Another advantage is there that these are just like as a background, these are very colorful. So you have a different color dyes, so you can integrate the aesthetic look, which is not present in case of crystalline silicon solar cells as well. The research in this domain that came forward is from Grezel, Michael Grezel, who have shown the potential of this one. Before that, before his research work, also there were solar cells. So he basically integrated certain combination of electron transport materials and hole transport materials that we will see to generate electricity from these solar cells with an efficiency close to silicon solar cells. So that's where the research ended up. Advantage is there, low cost. Now question is, can we scale them? Answer is yes. Just like silicon solar cells we are using on the rooftops are producing a high power, people are also using these dye-sensitized solar cells as well. For example, a company in Australia is making these solar cells just like silicon crystalline cells, and you can use different dyes to even match with the color and shading requirements. For example, these are the solar cells integrated with the jackets of a soldier. Those are commercially available, and then you can really use them for particular applications like powering your electronic gadgets which you carry with you, right? Where you cannot carry the batteries, where you cannot carry the, for example, heavy electricity requirements. So these are like very flexible. You can integrate with the clothings, you can integrate with the flexible substrates. Even in indoor also, you can integrate with your aesthetic uh, look, so that they can simultaneously generate electricity without any cost. And they can also provide an aesthetic look as well. That's there. So it means there is a potential people are trying to build up, even though there is a disadvantage with respect to the crystalline silicons because these are based on liquid dyes. So dye has its degradation problem over a period of time, right? So if I compare with a silicon solar cell, so if you see semiconducting solar cells are even including CIGS and CGTS, so these materials are opaque. You cannot see through them. Dye-sensitized solar cells are like transparent, colorful, different dyes can lead to the different colors, right? Environment friendly materials are there. Here you have a normal process which requires a lot of energy to fabricate these materials, a lot of processing cost that requires to make a PN junction and so on. So power generation cost will be relatively high. Here everything, if you have these materials you can make at home, and then you can make this device at home as well, and you can get power out of it, electrical power out of it, right? Power generation efficiency is yet relatively high in semiconductor, so homo or heterojunction based solar cells. However, here people have achieved competing efficiencies with respect to the semiconducting solar cells. There is a potential. Here we are working with a PN junction, whereas in this case, charge collection is not based on the PN junction, which is based on the competing kinetics of the electron transport materials. This is how a dye-sensitized solar cell works. For example, you have a light falling on your dye molecule, electron and holes are generated. Now we have these transport materials which are taking away this electron, and hole transport material that takes away, and then separation of these carriers to the external circuit that leads to the power. Right. So the most common material is used is nano TiO2, then dye. N number of dyes are there, but even people can use the flower extracts to make these dyes to get the solar energy out of this one. Whereas PN junction, you generate the electron hole pairs in the junction region where you have no other charge carriers. Then these charge carriers are generated and built-in potential will take them out. That is there, right? So mostly these are made of crystalline materials or amorphous silicon materials, whereas these are made on nanostructured materials with respect to the crystalline materials side. This is how the structure of a TiO2 solar cell looks like. That's how it works. So this is a two electrodes. One is a transparent conducting electrodes where through which you allow the light to fall on it. Then you have a counter electrode. Then you have these nanostructured particles which can nanostructured oxide materials with large band gap. That requirement that we will see why we need a large band gap. If these materials nanostructured wide band gap materials, so that you can have more absorption of incident sunlight. These will at the cathode electrode ends. So basically, you have four components in your system. The top electrode, that is transparent conducting oxide with a wide band gap. Then you have nanostructured wide band gap materials, which is acting as electron transport. You need to separate the electrons which are photo generated within the dye molecules. Then dye molecules to actually generate the photo generated carriers, which looks like sensitizers, as name suggests, and the electrolyte to compensate the holes in electrolyte that's there. So transparent conducting oxide is mostly used as a fluorine doped tin oxide substrate. Then counter electrode so far used is a platinum coated FTO. And nanostructured platinum catalysts are used to enhance the catalytic activity of transformation of this I3 minus to I continuously to compensate the holes in this circuit as well. So like the process suggests that first a light is falling on it, you excite the dye molecule, or I am using also the word quantum dot because they are also based on the same principles, which are also the next generation solar cells. So with respect to this, you have dye molecules associated with these. Now incident light allows the electron hole pair generation. Immediately that electron is captured by the electron transport material, which passes through the outer current collector, that is FTO. Whereas hole is compensated by the dye to bring the excited molecule, dye molecule into ground state so that it is ready for next absorption process. And then the external electron coming out will regenerate the dye molecule as well. Sorry, uh, electrolyte molecule as well, right? So this is better seen here. So if you see that I have shown this schematic diagram with respect to the relative electronic positions of these materials. So this is my ITU. This is conducting glass. So this is just like a metal. Then after that, I have a TiO2. Its conduction band is lying like this position that you see the effective dark line, black line. Then this is the conduction band and valence band separation between a dye molecule. So this is a conduction band of dye molecule, and this is the valence band of dye molecule. This is a requirement that one has to make sure in selective dyes that the conduction band of dye molecules should be above the conduction band of TiO2. Otherwise, efficient electron injection is not possible, and then electron transport material should not work, will not work. So that is a design criteria that we need to take in these cases. Then you need to see that this is a cathode material, and in between you have electrolyte. Electrolyte will also have a chemical potential that is lying somewhere here with respect to the, that is just slightly within the level of cathode chemical potential, so that the maximum open circuit voltage, remember that we have defined VOC in case of solid state junction solar cell, that is equivalent to the band gap. Here it is equivalent to the difference between the conduction band of electron and the chemical potential of electrolyte. So this difference is important. You want to maximize it without hampering the efficient electron injection as well, right? So you want to maximize this conduction band, but there is a limit that you cannot go beyond this excited state or conduction band of the molecule. So considering this, people follow to select certain dye molecules which satisfy this particular criteria, and then you can fabricate it in laboratory. So you have a FTO coated glass. Those are very cheap, or one can make it. You have a glass, then you can coat on top of it a conducting oxide layer, even using solution process. Then you have a very small nanocrystalline silicon thin film, TiO2 thin film. Because of its crystallinity, the effect of crystallinity leads to the better electron transport, and then you have nanostructured TiO2 molecules. Then dye will get absorbed around these dye molecules to realize this dielectric, realize this dye sensitized solar cell. So these are like components which are like in the development stage. So this is like a commercially available dye that 191 can buy and then see. But people are trying to develop different dyes, and if you integrate the dye with respect to this assembly, you have FTO, then you have nanocrystalline TiO2, and then on top of it you have this TiO2 as a electron transport material. Then you fill the dye. So different color dyes can be seen they can lead to the different color dye-sensitized solar cells. These are like rare earth-based different organic complexes that leads to these kind of dyes. Most popular and most common is ruthenium-based because of the wide spectrum over the entire solar region. So that's why it is most commonly used in dye-sensitized solar cells. Right. Now, questions, some of them we have already answered, that why we use nanoparticles, because that has a very high surface area. So you can attach more dye molecules to this. Why zinc oxide or TiO2 nanoparticles? Because light absorption and electron transports are separated in dye-sensitized solar cells, which is not the case in case of junction-based solar cells, right? So here you need to take care of efficient combination of wide bandgap semiconductor and dye molecule to satisfy this electronic conditions, so that efficient electron injection, the sooner your dye molecule is in excited state or photogenerated electron is available, it should be immediately transported to the TiO2, so that it should come out from the rest of the circuit. Liquid electrolyte, because electrolyte should be in contact with the dye molecule for efficient whole recombination. So in that case, you need to take care of filling everywhere. So liquid electrolyte can penetrate everywhere and can come in contact. And it is electrically insulating. That is again important. Otherwise, we will have a sorting between the front electrode and the back electrode. So that we also do not want. So to avoid this, we have electrolyte. Solid electrolyte can remain on the surface. So innermost electrolytes, we cannot fill the electrolytes inside this. Then only top layer can participate actively. So we need to have, in this case of, in these systems, we need to have a liquid electrolyte. People are trying to come up with the development of solid state dyes, but then integration of nanoparticles as well as the dye molecules becomes a challenge, and people have reported poor efficiencies in those ones. Then have a counter electrode, which is again FTO, which is a conducting oxide, but it has a very layer of platinum coated on it that acts as a catalyst to convert, but process of I minus to I3 I minus continuously to compensate the electron hole in the dye molecule to bring it into the ground state, and then which itself is compensated by the external electron coming from external circuit after separating it out. Making it is very easy. Like for example, you have dye molecule, you mix them, make a dye solution, you have a coated TiO2 nanoparticles, then you put the dye molecules inside and put the top electrode on top of it. So working principle that we have already seen, like how it works, right, in a more detailed way, what kind of materials can be used. So that's why it is easy to fabricate. All of you might have at least handled some of these nanoparticles. These are wide band gaps. So you need a nanostructured materials with a large band gap, more than 3 electron volt, like zinc oxide, TiO2, and SNO2. That's why these are preferred. Then you need a dye molecule which has electronic state in such a way that the conduction band position is just above the TiO2 conduction band, or any other zinc oxide or SNO2 for efficient electron transitions. And then we have a redox chemical potential, which is just equivalent to the cathode chemical potential as well. Right. So once light is falling, the photon is absorbed of corresponding energy, and electron is coming out into the conduction band. Then it is transferred through the TiO2 to the next stage, and then this electrolyte regenerates the dye molecules by recombining the electron at this end to compensate the photogenerated electron, and then it is in ground state and it can reabsorb the incident light and regenerate gas as well. Then you can extract these ones just like we have said before to get it. So the maximum voltage that I have said is one characterizing parameter is the difference between the conduction band of your electron and the redox potential or chemical potential of your electrolyte. That is the difference. You want to maximize this. Why you want to maximize this? Higher the voltage, you can increase the power because P is equal to V into I. That is there. But there is a limitation which you need to satisfy for efficient electron transfer as well. So this summarizes everything that whatever we have discussed so far. And this is again, like all the processes in these steps are summarized. We have electron from dye, photo-generated electron coming out through the conduction band of your wide band gap material. Then it is extracted, put into the external circuit or load. Then it is passing through the back cathode electrode, which is like platinum coated surface. Then it reactivates, electron is taken by this electrolyte to come into 3 excess electron will go again to means bring back the dye molecule into the ground state, right? So if you summarize these all processes, how this is happening after light, first process is that light is falling on it. Then second process that your dye molecule excites into its excited state. Then electron transport material captures this excited electron. This excited electron through the TiO2 comes to the counter electrode, means like passes through the load and then reaches to the other end. Then it regenerates itself, and electron is coming out to the counter electrode and we get the electrical energy. Then dye molecule regenerates the electrolyte regenerates the dye molecules to neutralize it, and then it is regenerated by the excess electron that is coming to the counter electrode. So this is like a whole complete process of chemical reactions that you can say going on simultaneously while light is falling and you are getting electricity out of it, right? That is there. Now, what is the time scale? If you see, the light absorption is happening within the 60 nanoseconds, or as soon as the light is getting absorbed, 60 nanosecond this process is happening, means the dye molecule itself can recombine the excited electron to bring back to the ground state. But you see, the electron injection process from conduction band of your dye molecule to the conduction band of nanoparticles, TiO2, wide band gap semiconductors, is of femtosecond to picosecond. So there is a less probability of direct recombination if they are in physical contact. Then this system is taken out by the external circuit. Whereas dye regeneration, this process again goes from counter electrode, it is in nanoseconds, whereas in this case, I3 minus to I minus, 3I minus, it takes long time, like milliseconds. And in this process, it will regenerate the dye molecule as well. So the overall process from after electron generation to recombination and regeneration of the electrolyte molecule is of the order of milliseconds. So the carrier lifetime or the carrier lifetime of the photo-generated carriers in Dyson's disolar cells is of the order of milliseconds. That is there. Again, in between, for example, there is a possibility of recombination, which is again, this recombination time scales are of the order of nanoseconds to milliseconds. So there is a high probability, if it is not extracted, it can recombine here as well. Things into account. What are the important from generation nanoseconds to electron injection in picoseconds to milliseconds, where it has an electron transport to the outer world, external circuit, then there is a possibility of interfacial recombinations, and their time scale is also of the order of milliseconds. So that's why, again, we have these interfacial losses because of these recombinations of photo-generated carriers leads to the lower efficiency, right? So we have a competition between electron transport and interfacial recombinations, and that again depends upon the how large is the diffusion length so that it can come out without recombining. That is there. So this is a competing interest between electron transport and electron recombination at interfaces. That is there. So this is what we have for a overall picture and how we look into it. Again, like whatever I have said to you, the parameters. So this is my solar spectrum that I could write here, so that you see this, it is intensity versus wavelength is falling on your solar cell. And if you see it, this is the characteristics that you generate. So looking into these characteristics, it is again identical to the PN junction. So you have same definitions: short circuit current density, open circuit voltage, and then a corresponding fill factor that corresponds to the maximum power point. That power line is going like this in this case. So if you see, you have characterized all the parameters. Again, after building this solar cell, I can characterize all the parameters in general that we have discussed for a solid state or PN based. So these are some of the examples of metal oxide nanoparticles which are used as a electron transport material. They include anything, and you can think of with a wide band gap, where band gap is close to 2 electron volt, 3 electron volt. You can think of it as a new metal oxide or other material, semiconducting material in nanostructure form, as a new electrode material for electron transport in dye-sensitized solar cells. Dyes, people are looking into a number of organic dyes which are more towards the dye-sensitized solar cells. But these dyes, as we said in the beginning, these dye-sensitized solar cells have a lifespan of maximum few months to the best produced solar cells in the world are 2 years. So they have a lifetime which is very small, even though they are cheap. But you don't want to replace every time, every alternate 2 years, these solar cells. So people wanted to replace these organic dyes with respect to solid state materials. So people came up with the alternatives of quantum dots. So there again, just like dyes, you have a different color dyes to cover the entire solar spectrum. The good part of these quantum dots is that you can vary the size of these quantum dots to generate a complete window of the colors that is there. So these are an n number of semiconducting quantum dots are available to cover this. So you can cover the entire solar spectrum by varying the size of these nanoparticles. These quantum dots, their size is in the range of few nanometers, less than always 10 nanometers. So that can cover entire solar spectrum. And these are solid states. So they do not degrade as fast as these dye molecules. So if I can use a quantum dot sensitizer solar cell, then there is a possibility that I can increase the lifespan of my solar cell. And that's what people have tried as an alternative of dye sensitized solar cells and quantum dot sensitized solar cells. Fabrication process is very easy. Just like I said, that you have a wide band gap material, you have to do it all maybe in a better steps, go in this way. So you have a piece of your transparent conducting glass, means coated with some conducting layer. Then you put 2 tapes, just like as an example. Then, and this process is exactly identical with the quantum dot sensitized solar cells. What is the next step? If you recall the schematics that where we are talking about electron transport, I need to put a nanostructured wide band gap materials layer. So in this step, then you have a slurry of TiO2 nanoparticles that you put between these 2 tapes, and then you take out the tapes. So this will look like a coated TiO2 nanoparticles layer. That is, size of these nanoparticles is like 50 to 60 nanometer. And this process is called drag method. Just like you pour the liquid slurry, and then you take a spatula or a blade, and then you drag it to the other end, you will get a uniform layer. The thickness of these layers are around few micrometers, 3 to 4, 5 micrometers. That is there, right? So once you have this layer, that is, you have fabricated, then you heat so that all organic solvents that you have used to make it a slurry are gone from this. Then you integrate your dye. So either you integrate dye or you integrate quantum dots. Both are possible. Different ways are there. So there again, people are trying to do the innovation to find out new ways of looking the integration of dye or quantum dots into system. In this case, you have a dye solution. You just dip it because you have these nanoparticles which are porous in nature. So dye should go and stick physically to all these nanoparticles for physical binding and cover maximum of the area so that large number of dye molecules are available. This is the schematic picture, looks like that how they are assembled on TiO2 nanoparticles. That is there. Right. Then this process that we have done so far is called sensitization. So that is one dye molecule. This is physically attached with the nanoparticle of electron transport material. So that's why any electron generation using the solar energy, excited electron, because of its higher conduction band energy, it naturally drives in few picoseconds, very small time scale, into the conduction band of this bigger TiO2 nanoparticle, which is acting as electron transport material, right? When you remove the electrode, you dry it in the sunlight, then I need to cover it with a top electrode. So then I need another transparent conducting oxide, but coated with platinum. So I need to coat with the platinum. So I did a spray coating of this platinum nanoclusters, and then we put two holes so that we can make it a arrangement by sealing it. So in this case, we have put this on top of it, using them together with a plastic tape, which we can heat to melt and seal the device. And then these two holes are available so that you can pour the electrolyte that is still missing. So we heated it, so the previous device has combined here so that no space is available for leaking out the electrolyte, and this is achieved by heating it so that it glues properly, and then we pour the electrolyte on top of it. So we pour the electrolyte using simple whatever you have created so that it fills the space. And then we put again this thermal plastic, which is seals. Now my solar cell is ready. So how it is, you see, you can do it at home without any specialized knowledge of fabricating a device, and then you can enjoy the generation of electricity. So now this is a complete device with all these, following this minimum number of steps, right? Then I have put, this is a schematic to put electrolyte, to crocodile clips to connect to the external electric world to test the device, right? So this is like inside the cell, a particle of light called a photon hits the dye molecule, and then this gives an electron enough energy to escape the molecule and move to the titanium oxide nanoparticle. When this happens, a hole is left behind. A mediator, for example, iodide means electrolyte, and the liquid electrolyte fills the hole with one of its own electrons. And then this electron, which is now trapped, has to travel the actual distance the electron travels through TiO2 nanoparticles to come out to the external world and power the device. So these electrons coming out through the TiO2, passing through your crocodile clip to the external world. So that is there. So, and that's how we generate the electricity. So this is for fabricating a one device, and the process is so simple. Materials are so simple. You can work at home to fabricate this device, and that's why these are called third generation solar cells, where emphasis is given on reducing the cost, at the same time improving the performance so that you can compete with the existing high cost solar cells. This is just a schematic that people, how I have shown 4 companies are making these dye sensitized solar cells. So this is like how the process, people have fabrication process where they can fabricate roll to roll dye sensitized solar cells. So they have integrated the coating of these TiO2 nanoparticles, then thermal treatment to make them cured, then integrating the dye, and then integrating the electrolyte, and then sealing the device, and then taking it out. That is there. So if I compare again the knowledge that we have so far, silicon solar cells that we have seen in the first few slides, efficiencies are like 15 to 20%. Thin film solar cells efficiencies are like 9 to 12%. Theoretical efficiency is maximum high. Whereas if you see, you have made a module where theoretical efficiency is reaching up to 20%, which is like, but module efficiency, you are also achieving 6 to 9%, which is close to the thin film silicon solar cells or amorphous silicon solar cells. Whereas the cost of amorphous silicon solar cell is huge with respect to the dye sensitized solar cells. Process doesn't require any high energy instrumentations and costly equipments, vacuum based equipments. Everything can be done at much environment friendly conditions without having heavy instruments. These are some of the examples that how people have integrated from the company which is in Australia to give a aesthetic look and using the similar these kind of cells, easy to make, integrate the colors, can be transparent, can be flexible to integrate in body clothes, and easy to fabricate, easy to make, right? These are some of the examples where people have shown different kind of solar cells. Even people have made like these leaf-like solar cells. You can use them to decorate your home as well, right? Fine. So this is like end of one type of solar cell that we have seen, which has a potential of replacing or at least fulfilling the requirement of low-cost solar cells, competing with the existing solar cell. However, still the lifespan of this solar cell is very limited, right? The counterpart here also the efficiencies are now limited. Now its next counterpart is like quantum dot solar cells. Okay, just a looking into it, what is the characterization? Again, like we have used all the characterization techniques that I have told in the beginning are used here, with one more technique that is like transient pump probe spectroscopy, that is used for determining the time scale, that what is the time scale that we have discussed in this process, like from picoseconds, forget about it, from picoseconds to nanoseconds and then in milliseconds, that we can use with this one. These are like up to these first three we have already discussed in detail. This one is an additional one, but it is like a costly one that probably may not be available, but first three are still sufficient to characterize the device. So current status where we are, small area efficiencies are like 11% to even 20%, like in some of the solar cells. Highest efficiency on module is reached up to 9%. Issues related to use of liquid electrolyte is there because it evaporates, and suppose if you use in hot environment, then definitely they are going to degrade very fast. Now people are looking to solid state electrolytes, but integration is a challenge for a large number of dye molecules. People are working on dyes where they can improve the absorption efficiency of these light ones, right? So what is the current status in this case is like people are working for as a research problem. So four important components are there as a materials: electron transport material that we have seen as an example of TiO2, SNO2. People are trying to bring new materials which can be a competing with these ones, but so far TiO2 has shown the best performance because of its stability, chemical stability, and large band gap. What are the possible electrolytes for efficient ion transport to compensate the electron or hole basically in the valence band of these sensitizers like dyes or quantum dots? What are the possible dyes or quantum dots for efficient light absorption? Then what are the possible electrodes? You don't want to use platinum as a counter electrode because again, then we are talking about reducing the cost, but at the same time, if you use platinum, which is very costly, then again, the cost will be not very favorable. So people are working with the alternative counter electrodes that can compete with the platinum or replace the platinum. There are answers that people have received better performance with respect to platinum, including people are using as a graphene as one of the electrode. Then we have two interfaces, electron transport material and dye. So there we need to minimize the interface resistances and recombination to improve the performance. And counter electrode and electrolyte interfaces, there also you need to minimize the interface resistances and interface recombination of electrons coming from external circuit so that it should reach to the electrolyte rather than recombining at the interface as well. And also minimum resistance at the interface as well, so that there are no resistive losses during the electron transport. So that is the current aspect of solar cells. People are trying to work hard to make more realistic and more efforts are putting to compete with the existing solar cells so that they can get better price for same amount of energy generation that is there. So this is one of the challenging tasks where people are using, and these are called third generation solar cells. In this, like we said, there is a problem of liquid dye. So people have started looking into quantum dot sensitized solar cells. So why quantum dots are there? Important. Again, we have used a bulk material which has a continuous bands. Now, in this case, discrete energy levels will be coming into picture. So that discreteness will decide here what is the gap in these cases. And we want to increase the efficiency beyond the single cell solar cell or beyond the theoretical efficiencies for dye sensitized solar cells. How we can increase the efficiency means we want to increase the conversion power. It means I need to increase the open circuit voltage also of my device, or I need to increase the more current. More current, how can I increase? By introducing the better absorber, which absorbs more incident photons. So the more incident photons will generate more current. But how we can integrate, how we can include a higher operating voltage? In that case, we need to integrate a very high operating high conduction band electron, and then respective quantum dots or dyes conduction band should be above that but close to that one. Then we can increase the potential, the energy difference between the chemical potential of electrolyte and the conduction band of your electron transport material. Then we can do that. So ultimately we need to improve V, increase V, and we need to increase I. How we can do that? If we increase the band gap of my dye molecules, then it will absorb less fraction of incident light because the band gap is large. So the less fraction of right energy photons are available. So you want to reduce the band gap so that it can absorb. Then you want to increase the open circuit voltage. So in that case, there is a trade-off how we select the material so that it satisfies the electronic requirement of conduction bands of TiO2 or electron transport material and the conduction band of either quantum dots or dye sensitized molecules simultaneously, right? So in quantum dots, what is the advantage is there we have a discrete energy states, few energy states. So in that case, if we see the electron goes from conduction valence band to the conduction band in bulk, so what will happen? Large number of energy states are available in the bulk that you can see here. So it will dissipate its energy in the form of heat, continuous heat. Like, whereas in case of quantum dots, what will be the advantage? If you excite electron from the conduction band to the valence band, electron can go from this state. In between there is no state in conduction band, so it will come to this. It will release the discrete energy, and that is equivalent to the energy difference between the two conduction band energy states, or it can get thermalized and then it can release that energy, and that energy can be reused as well. So that we will see how it is possible, why this concept is very important. So what I said, I have a discrete energies in quantum dots. In case of bulk, we have seen that electron will release its energy thermally and then it will be wasted. Whereas in this case, if I have a band gap which is small enough in case of quantum dots, and if I excite with a higher energy photon, electron will go to the higher energy. There are two possibilities. The one possibility is that it has a very high energy, so it can do impact ionization. This electron can hit another quantum dot or another electron to bring out from the system. Then we have impact ionization, or it releases its energy. The equivalent energy differences are taken and then put back. That energy is sufficient to put back another electron from valence band to the conduction band. So what is interesting, you have only a single incident photon. And how many electron and hole pairs are getting? Two electron and hole pairs. So this is the advantage of using quantum dots, that you can get more than one electron hole pairs at the cost of a single photon. This we call as a multi-exciton generation. So if this is possible, you are increasing the internal quantum efficiency. Remember, we have used the word in the beginning, how to characterize quantum solar cells, internal quantum efficiency. So you are increasing the internal quantum efficiency of your solar cell to 200%. So it means what is the Shockley-Queisser limit based on the detailed thermal balance principle is now going to be beaten by the multi-exciton generation in the system. So you can increase. So these are the new concepts people are trying to integrate in quantum dot sensitized solar cells to realize multi-exciton generation and achieve more than 100% internal quantum efficiency. This is again showing the same process of separation of these ones. So there are various ways that people have tried to integrate into the devices. So you have a quantum dots. These are quantum dot discrete energy states available to you. And in between you have a N-type and a P-type semiconductors. And then if you put in this array, then a respective electric field is created. When you generate the electron hole pair, they will be drifting because of the built-in electric field. At the same time, this impact ionization or this direct electron capturing can happen to generate more than one electron hole pairs at the cost of single photon. This process of making this is again very simple. You have to have a low band gap semiconducting low quantum dot satisfying the criteria of so internal structure is similar to dye sensitized solar cells, except we have respective quantum dots in place of dyes. So they are solid, so their relative life stability is much more with respect to the dye sensitized solar cell. Rest of the process is same, but since now you are using the quantum dots, so you need to find out a relative dye because the same dye cannot work which you have used iodine iodide based. So in this case, people have used iodine iodide, but that doesn't work as well for quantum dots because most of the quantum dots integrated with solar cells are sulfur based, cadmium sulfide, cadmium selenide, where iodine reacts with sulfur and selenium, degrades quantum dots for a period of time. Then people have used sulfide based electrolytes to realize the complete device. So now they have used TiO2, then they have integrated low band gap quantum dots, and then they have used sulfide electrolytes, and then they have used a counter electrode, and the rest of the electron transport process is similar to the dye sensitized solar cells that we have. Advantage is here. If we have the incident photon light, which is greater than 2.5 times the band gap of your material, there is a high probability that we can induce two photo-generated electrons in the system at the cost of single photon. So we can generate multi-excitons, which is not possible in any other solar cell system. So this system has a unique advantage. You can beat the limit, that is Shockley-Queisser limit. So with quantum dot sensitized solar cells, conversion efficiency can be increased beyond the Shockley-Queisser limit, which is for single junction solar cells. Hot electrons means electrons which was excited from valence band to the conduction band. It has a very high kinetic energy because of large energy of the incident photon. It loses without loss in energy. Either hot electron is there, then thermal energy will be coming out, or impact ionization. These two can lead to the multi-exciton generations, like to exceed more than 100% internal quantum efficiency. Experimental evidences are still running behind to prove this concept. However, theoretically, it has been already introduced, and people are trying to see whether multi-exciton is possible or not. So people have shown this using optical spectroscopy, like fast spectroscopy, like terahertz spectroscopy, to see the generation of multi-excitons at the cost of a high energy incident photon. So these are like recent advances in the field of next generation solar cells, where people are trying to innovate low cost materials which can lead to a alternative to the existing current technologies. Those who are interested, they can just simple, if they are more interested in dye sensitized solar cells, they can look for Grazel's work. And this quantum dot sensitized solar cells, n number of references are available, but from where the principle came for next generation photovoltaics using quantum dot solar cells is Nozick, who has generated, who has introduced the new concept of multi-exciton generation in quantum dots. Means you can generate more than one electron hole pairs at the cost of a single photon. May lead to the very new novel approach of next generation solar cells. All these things are also reviewed in this review article as well, right? So with this, we have introduced some of the new concepts or new next generation solar cells in this respect. And with this, I will stop it here. And if there are questions, I will be happy to take them.
Thank you so much, sir. So now I'm starting the question answer thing. We have some questions in the chat box. So the first question is, sir, could you please give some examples what type of dyes can be used to prepare such solar cells? Dssc.
Okay, fine. So if you want to use commercial, then you find out 719. That is a commercially available. You can buy from Alpha SR or Sigma Eldritch. Otherwise, if you are having a little interest in innovating things, so you can get a colorful flowers like rose, like what I will say, I don't know what is called in one flower that is a pink color, that is tesu. I don't know what is called in English, right? So you can find out a number of colored flowers in our gardens. And if you boil them, you take their extract, probably you prepare a concentrated dye, you can make a new result. That I have used such a low cost dye by simply preparing in laboratory by boiling it and concentrating it and then integrating in the rest of the dye sensitized solar cells. So you can introduce new dyes in the system, and the color of flower will tell you that what is the wavelength spectrum it is going to absorb in your solar cell. At the same time, you do UV visible spectroscopy to find out the absorption band of your respective dye as well. That is there. So a standard ruthenium based N1719 is available that you can buy. But if you are a researcher, if you want to like to innovate, better enjoy the nature and find out which color is looking more colorful, and you integrate in your dye sensitized solar cell, and then you enjoy in making a new material, and then find out its chemical composition, chemical formula, and all those things, and produce a new solar cell, introduce a new dye to the market as well, or to the scientific community.
Thank you, sir. So one of our participant, she's replying to your answer that Butia monosperma is tesu flower that you were just mentioning in your answer. Tesu flower, it is Butia monosperma.
Right. That's fine. So yes, so that has also a dark pink yellowish color, right? Yes. So that can also cover a wide spectrum of solar cell, and that if you can extract its, if you can get extract of this flower, then you can, rather than using the commercial dye, you use your dye, and so that what is the performance of this particular thing is there.
Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is, what are the factors that affect the performance of DSSC?
Very simple question and very interesting question. Simple in the sense that everyone should think of stability. So first thing is dye molecules stability. So dye molecule gets degraded in higher temperature. So temperature is a big factor. Moisture is a big factor, because moisture it degrades, because dye, these are organic molecules, they can bind with the moisture, they can make new molecule. So that molecule may not have absorption capacity at all. So moisture is a problem, dye is a problem, electrolyte is a problem, because if I keep this solar cell, because solar cell I have to keep in open ambient where sunlight is falling, and if sunlight is falling continuously on your solar cell will get heated. When it gets heated, dye molecules should be stable in that particular temperature. Your organic molecule, which is a dye, should be stable. Electrolyte should be stable, should not degrade. So these are like biggest challenges. Then leakage problem. So you fabricate a solar cell, it is working very well. But with time, if it starts leaking, then electrolyte will come out. Then everything will dry. There is no electrolyte, then solar cell is going to fail. That is there. So these are like challenges which we need to take care when we are fabricating a device and testing it. We need to ensure that these things are taken care. So proper sealing is equally important, right?
Thank you, sir. So next question is, when we are using dyes in the DSSC, in which wavelength range they absorb solar radiation, IR or UV?
Okay, so fine. So UV is not there. We don't use very high energy band gap dye molecules. So we use which are in the visible range. And because maximum of the solar energy is in the visible range. So for UV, if you want to absorb, it is a very small fraction. Recall, if I can show you my first few slides where I was discussing about quantum efficiency, maybe a whole solar, you will find maybe less than 1% or 2% is the UV region. So you don't want to worry about 1 or 2%. Thermal, you don't want to worry about, this is again very small. So maximum solar spectrum is in the visible region. So you need to select a dye which works in the visible region. So you need to absorb all the visible light falling from sun to your sensitized solar cells. Then you can make a good solar cell. Otherwise, if it doesn't respond to the smaller energy, a smaller wavelength light which is visible, then your solar energy will be discarding those things. So you don't want that. So you want absorbers or dyes or quantum dots with a band gap in the region of 1.5 electron volt to 2 electron volt. That is the region. That's one has to select. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. So next question is, how DSSC and traditional solar cells differ in terms of their performance and conversion efficiency?
Well, I have compared, I have shown a table as well. So conventional solar cells are silicon solar cells. Like first generation solar cells are crystalline silicon solar cell. Second generation solar cells are thin film, but both are based on silicon. The crystalline silicon solar cell first generation efficiency means like field efficiency is around 20%, 17 to 20%. Thin film solar cell efficiency is around something like 9 to 11% best solar cells. Dye sensitized solar cells field efficiency is like 7%, 8%, but laboratory efficiency is up to 20% people have shown. So it means there is a potential if we work with taking care of dye degradation, electrolyte degradation, proper sealing problem, we can make solar cells. At least we are competing. Dye sensitized solar cells in current technology are competing with the amorphous solar cell. However, their lifespan is limited, but their efficiency is in some places it is more than amorphous silicon solar cell. So they are competing very fast with them. Only the thing is that now we need to improve their stability, which is now maximum 2 years, at least to 10 years, 15 years. That is there. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Our last question is from Dr. Mahesh Chandra Sharma, and he's asking, what is the lifetime of QDSSC?
QDSSC, again, it is in the research state. There are no modules available based on quantum dot sensitized solar cells. So lifespan is not clear, but it is much more than dye sensitized solar cells because dyes are organic molecules. They degrade much faster. With respect to quantum dots, they are solid state molecules, solid state particles. So their stability is 100 times better than dye molecules. So I am sure that their lifespan will be definitely at least several orders of magnitude. Maybe if there are 2 years, then definitely these will last for maybe 10 years as well. But as far as research is concerned, dye sensitized solar cells are available in module forms where people are looking for their stability and came up with maximum degradation happens after 2 years, they fail. But in quantum dot sensitized solar cells, we are still in the research stage. There is no such module level study available on quantum dots. that is there. Yes.
Thank you, sir. We all are so grateful to you for delivering this very interesting session in which you gave detailed information on next generation solar photovoltaic techniques. On the behalf of Gyan Bihar University, I extend our heartily thanks to you and all our participants. They are also expressing their thankfulness to you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, all the participants. With this, I declare end of the session.